Many experts agree that a misaligned AI might be dangerous, but still push back on the likelihood of the risks that were mentioned. Many claim that since we're building these AI systems ourselves, we can just ensure they have the same goals as us, or at least that their goals are roughly such that we'll be very happy with everything that they're doing. Others might question whether we should expect such AI systems to even have goals at all. ChatGPT is just a tool that fills in text. It's not clear that claiming it has any goals makes sense. Why won't future AIs be the same? Isn't the discussion of goals and misalignment in itself assumes too much humanity on behalf of these future software tools? Experts continue to disagree on these points, and they're genuinely hard to resolve, as we're trying to predict the nature and behavior of entities that don't yet exist, and may have many cognitive functions we don't have access to. As we've discussed multiple times, our track record on even much simpler prediction problems is not great. One thing we can do is look at the AI models we're building right now and see how these arguments play out. There is no guarantee that future AGI would look anything like the models we're building now, and that our conclusions will hold. But at least, if we're concerned about AGI rising in the short term, let's say the next 10 to 20 years, then these are prime candidates for the technologies that would actually bring them about. Current machine learning models, neural networks and others, almost always have what's called a loss function that is used to train them. Avoiding the technicalities of the definition, every time the model takes an action during training, like guessing whether a picture is a cat or a dog, or outputting the next word in a stream of text, the loss function indicates how good or bad that action or output was. In more intuitive and humanized terms, it can be thought of as a reward or punishment, indicating what the model needs to learn. Make your answers more like this and less like that. The model changes and updates based on these lessons, minimizing its loss. Eventually, you get an AI model that, at least in some sense, optimizes for its loss function, meaning it acts in a way that gets the least punishment according to whatever that mathematical function tells it to minimize. For example, an AI that plays chess or Go will increasingly maximize the number of wins it gets in those games, which, through some fancy machine learning tricks, is translated into minimizing some mathematical loss function. Here, you can see a real example of an AI model slowly learning to move towards a target, walk, avoid obstacles, and more. The model can control its limbs and is rewarded for certain behaviors, like getting closer to the target, and punished for certain behaviors, like hitting the ground. Very roughly, and we're simplifying here, the rewards and punishments influence the score of its loss function, and by repeatedly trying different things, the model is able to gradually learn to exhibit more of the rewarded behavior and less of the punished one. In this case, it ultimately translates to being able to walk. This paradigm of optimizing for the loss function isn't great if we're worried about AI having goals and willing to do anything to achieve them. When people worried about risks from AI talk about AI having goals, they're usually not talking about the more philosophical questions of whether the AI is conscious, whether it truly wants things, and so on. These are fascinating questions, but potentially less important for the question of the risks AI poses to humans. They are talking about whether the AI's behavior is one that exhibits the striving for specific goals. And the current paradigm produces AIs that take actions that maximize a very specific goal, encoded in that loss function. Now, if a certain model is very limited in its capabilities, or is only trained on a very narrow set of circumstances, the way it minimizes its loss function can be somewhat predictable. When we train it to tell the difference between cats and dogs, it will often use methods we expect, like does it have whiskers, the shape of its ears, and so on. It'll often do things we don't fully understand, but it will be limited to the narrow context we trained it in. In this example, looking at the pixels of an image and outputting either cat or dog. But the more capable a model becomes, and the broader the set of ways it can interact with the world, the more it tends to really surprise us.